Hi, I'm Dick Singh. Welcome to this issue of A Turn for the Better. We're looking for a little project this month, something that probably will make mom, one of your family, or whoever happy. Oil lamps are always seen to be one of those things that women like to light them when they take a bath. Sometimes they're set around and lit to mask odors. Sometimes they're just plain love to see them lit. Maybe I'm a pyromaniac, but I kind of like watching a flame. There's something about it that's kind of an inherent part of a human, I think, that they love to watch a little fire. They're very simple. They're not a difficult thing to make. Whatever you have for wood will be more than adequate. Some work better than others, and we'll just kind of go into making one. The materials and tools that you need are very minimal. Number one, you're going to need a confetti light. They're available many places: Woodcraft, Craft Supplies, Packard. Any of the places that handle tools normally handle the little project lamps such as this. We are going to need an 1.5" Forstner bit, and I'm going to use a piece of drooping she oak. It comes out of Australia, and the reason being, I think it produces a very nice pattern on the wood. One thing I normally don't really pay or like to do is use too bland of a wood. I like to have it have some kind of characteristic that makes it stand out, whether it be multiple species of wood put together or wood with some fantastic type pattern or a burl, whatever. But sometimes on a small project like this, the wood makes a very big difference. I've put my block in the lathe, making sure that I'm seated on the very bottom. Like I've mentioned many times, the chuck not only holds in circumference, it also has to have the base sitting flat so that this piece does not have a tendency to rock. If the base of your jaws are not flat, you can always take and leave a spot for the face of the jaws to hold that in position. Okay, a lot of the folks will use a gouge to clean this up, and I do a high percentage at a time, but one of the easy and quick ways is with a skew. Now, I'm not saying using it in its planing mode. I use it in a pairing mode, which is going to be similar to this. You have to start high and feed it in. I have yet to find a lathe that doesn't have a certain amount of play in the tailstock. If you put that lathe out of alignment, lock it down, you're going to drill an oversized hole. So what I like to do is leave the tailstock loose, bring it up slowly, and the tip will align itself the best it can. Then lock down your tailstock, and then you can advance your drill into that. We're using an 1.5" drill, and I'm going to have to drill roughly 1 3/8 deep to encompass that little oil lamp. Well, evidently I don't know how to measure because we need it deeper. You know, here's where your artistic eye starts. Do you want this high? Do you want it recessed? Whatever you want. My preference at this point, seeing how I haven't really cleaned this surface up, I think I would rather have it deeper. I would kind of like to bury the the jar into the block of wood. That looks a little better to me. Now I've got it actually below the surface that allow me to take and do some changing or whatever I would like to do here. The initial step I'm going to make is to take and straighten up my top surface. I also want to break that inside edge just a little bit. We don't want it too sharp. Let's make sure that we've got this where we want it. Okay, now this leaves me kind of a sharp edge right here. So I'm going to just radius that edge a little more and make it look a little more compatible to the oil lamp itself. There, that just suits me much better. It just looks like it was made to go in there now. Now we can start shaping our outside. Just going to start shaping my block. Using my whole body to take and move this. This is kind of a brittle wood, so you want to treat it as such. I kind of like what's there. I like the sharp, defined edge around it, but I like the recess and a little bit of a roll on the inside. Now I'm going to start to sand on the end. Now I am sanding part of this because when I turn this around, I'm going to be setting up on the center line of that hole. Like I've said many times, a drill will go in the direction of least resistance, even a Forstner bit. Normally they're pretty good holes, and I think this one will do the same, but you never know. So I don't want to have to go back and try and do this edge, which I'm quite happy with now. So I'll just finish it up a little bit so I can blend back into this area. Piece of 240, be careful when you put your fingers inside of a hole. They have a tendency that they can catch. That sandpaper can catch and take your finger right around with it. It hurts. There's a spot I don't really care for. So let's fix that. These are not tear-outs. They're part of the grain that is like a real large pour. And right now they have some dust in them. So I'm going to take a piece of polyethylene packing material and a little bit of thin super glue, and I'm going right over those and seal that dust into it. And that should hide our big pores, I guess would be the proper word for it. Okay, this is nothing too high. I'm just going to sand it, taking some coarser paper and knocking the high spot off first. Going back through my grits. That was 320. This is 400, 600. I believe this is where they were. Either there or there, but I can't tell anymore, so I guess it took care of it. Now I contend you cannot get all the concentric rings out with the lathe running, so I always give it one hit with the sandpaper when I'm finished, and we'll give it a coat of finish. What I'm using is just plain Deft satin finish, straight out of the can. Reason I'm doing it at this stage, I'm going to have to turn it around to finish the bottom, and I won't be easily able to get back here, so I'll just finish it at this time. Just taking and buffing it out a little bit, getting rid of the excess. And I'm happy with it, so we'll turn it around. I have gone to a different set of jaws. This is a set I designed. They were sold as Father Singh jaws, and I believe they're now sold as extended jaws. The neat thing about them, at its mean diameter, it's 1 3/8 inches, which will fit a clock face, or they will open up to 1.5 inches easily and hold our oil lamp. Now, I'm sure someone's going to say, I don't have those jaws. What I did before the jaws was to make 1.5 inch jam chuck. In other words, I just made an extension just like that, this would just fit over and drive it with a friction fit. It's running pretty true, but like I said before, the drill goes where it wants to go, and now we're actually turning it on the axis of the hole. That is why I made sure that this surface was in good shape before I reversed it. If you're using a wooden tenon to drive this, you may feel more comfortable using your tailstock to come up and hold it. You can hear how brittle that wood is. It cuts clean, but it is brittle. Now, just looking at that, that looks like that is too long for what I want for a shape, so I'm just going to cut it off. That looks much better to me. Use a shearing cut and blend the whole thing back. Yeah, this I'm going to take a little heavier cut, just to get the curve right. Seems anytime you make one move, you have to go back and do it all. That doesn't look too bad. Now we do need the bottom to look like it was turned rather than just hit on a belt sander, and you can do this very easily now. Like to concave the bottom a little bit. Make sure we have a flat for it to sit on. And I'm going to put my signature on it. I always like to put a little bit of a bead in the bottom. And over the years, I guess I've done it so much that people know my work by it. Okay, we're going to start to sand this. Up here where I'm blending it together, the sandpaper will more than handle that situation. Just want to make sure that everything is sanded out into a nice shape. I'm going to leave this simple. Rather than putting some incised lines or beads or something of that nature, I think it is very difficult to make something pretty and still be simple. Most people have a tendency to over adorn a piece by doing too many things to it. I think if your shape is right, it'll last forever. Just checking to see if we have any more of those little holes, but I do have a spot that needs more sanding yet. Like I say, get all your bad spots out before you start going to a finer paper. I think we can go to our paper now rather than the cloth. Okay, I'm getting where I'm having a difficult time getting my fingers in by the chuck here. One of the really nice things about doing this, all I have to do is release it a little bit, pull it out, retighten it. Now I've got plenty of room. Here's a classic example. Rather than using ornamentation, the wood is so busy that it takes care of that situation. Why would I want to take and put something in there that would destroy something that looks like that? Not bad for a piece of scrap wood. Okay, our next step, our last finishing step, is to buff this. I have a concentric sewn wheel. In other words, it's sewn all the way around, and this wheel is a little harder than what most wheels are. I'm going to charge it with just a little bit of buffing compound. Now this is not meant to take the finish off. It's just meant to level it out and smooth everything. You notice I'm at an angle. If there are concentric rings going around it, and you being on an angle, you will have a tendency to buff those out a little bit rather than buffing with them. You will be going across them. When I'm finished with the concentric wheel, I move to a loose wheel, which I apply with a little bit of wax. And now I'll give it its final buff. As you can see, this wheel flexes as you apply it. In other words, all it's doing is buffing out our wax. And I can't stress enough, this buffing wheel will remove objects from your hand. It will throw that out if you allow that piece to let the wheel get a hold of it. In other words, you don't go in such as this and hit that wheel because it's going to catch it and drag it down on you. This way it is okay as long as the rotation is going away from the surface that you're hitting. See how that's going away from everything. The wheel is going in this direction. And here's our finished piece. We'll put our lamp in it, just slightly below the lip of it, and I think we'll call it done. Here's the one we just finished, and I think it's kind of a neat, nice, smooth, clean shape. This one I thought was kind of nice. But as all best laid plans of mice and men, it got knocked off a shelf, got dented up. So it really needs to be recut. Also, there's just something about that particular one that people didn't seem to like. My talk about ornamentation and the right shape, I'm going to put that back in the lathe and recut it and see if we can come up with a better form. I put that oil lamp back in the lathe. I'm not going to re-drill a hole. I'm just going to see what I can do to change the basic shape of this. Number one, I think it was too tall to begin with. This is just an experiment. I'm going in and cut part of this off. Hard to see what I've really got. I know I want to make it shorter. Now it lends a whole different attitude towards it. It allows me to see what I've got. It almost looks like a southwestern form right now. Area right here looks too fat. Stop and take a look and see what we've really got. Still don't care for it. Get rid of some of the diameter. Better. Now it's still too tall. Take another look. Many times a piece in the lathe looks totally different than when it's out. At this time right now, I think this shape looks better in my hand than it did on the lathe. I've put it back in the lathe, and let's take a shot of see what else we can do here. Now sometimes just looking at a finished area versus an area that's not finished will probably have a whole different outlook on it. Well, that doesn't look too bad. Well, I think it's better than it was before, and I'm still undecided. The worst that could happen is I could end up throwing it away, but what better way to learn than to try something? Let's try a little more. Still hasn't got the appeal. Okay, I put it back in the lathe again, and I think I see what all my problems are. Right in this area, you can see it's kind of high. There's something wrong there. Looks much better to me. I'm doing a shear cut on this just to smooth everything out. Very lightly, just trying to enhance my surface. I think I'm going to go with that. Here's our recut oil lamp finished, and to me it's a much better shape. It kind of flows where the other one kind of drooped or sagged. Probably some people will like the other one better than this, but this one happens to be my choice. Again, it's that thing, if the form looks good, the wood helps it along, but it actually is the basic form. Would I do it again? If necessary, yes, I would. The biggest problem would have been never having to have tried. Here are a few different examples of things that can be done. Don't be afraid to try things differently. As we showed you with this one, there's nothing that says we can't recut it. Let your creative juices flow. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this segment, and I hope I've lit a fire underneath your creative juices.